Welcome to the RC Motorsport Europe podcast.
Start with one of the biggies, 1/8 IC Off-Road.
Okay.
So this is one of the breakout meetings, as we call them.
So this happens after lunch, and we've been to many AGMs, and so what happens is everyone breaks for lunch. You have lunch, and then you go to your section meetings, and some of these meetings are still going 8:30, 9 p.m. in the evening.
Yeah. Especially the electric one, because there's a lot of categories.
There's a lot of categories, and I think you sat in on the electric one till
a little bit, quite late.
Quite late.
Yeah, this one, the 1/8 Off-Road, the section chairman, Carlos Gomez.
Mm-hmm.
It runs pretty quick, I must say.
Okay. Runs a tight ship, does
yes,
Carlos?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
So that's why we can kind of burn through this pretty quickly.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, chairman's welcome.
Yep.
Again, there's a roll call taken.
Yeah.
And then this section here, all of this section here is for the allocations for the various countries. So Finland representative will say, "Oh, we'd like 5 spots. Germany, we'd like so many, and Great Britain, et cetera, et cetera." But that is done at the end of the meeting, and that's why the allocations are mentioned there. And then so they go through the minutes of last year's meeting, just reminding the various proposals that were voted in and how they were received. Correspondences. So these would be, I guess, letters from the various maybe racers or federations saying, well, this federation didn't like this, or they did like this, or they would like to see that, or whatever. And then the chairman's report. So this includes like who won, how the race was handled, how it was organized, and these are about the various European championships. And there's many here. So there's EFRA A, B, 40 plus, and electric.
And and you'll know that this is all 26, because 25 is decided because they work 2 years out because of the amount of time it takes to prepare for a Euro. So
and you can check those out obviously in the other podcasts that we've done.
Yeah.
Going over the 25
So we've looked
locations.
at, if you haven't already seen it, we've looked at each of these venues, and we've looked at what these venues or clubs, hosts, potential hosts have sent in to EFRA, and is available on this webpage, efra.ws. We've looked through it all and found some live streams and some other video content just to kind of get a feel for each venue. Lots of them we've been to before, but some of them are new. So check out that podcast if you haven't watched it already.
And and then so basically these are the various venues that are up for voting on, and the event that they're pitching themselves for. And then they've already got dates. Yeah. It's actually the only section that already has dates and locations for all of the events for 2025. Of course, these are subject to change. There might be some clashes here or there, but don't know. We'll find out a couple weeks after the AGM. And then these are blank because these are to be decided. But you can see for 2026, the IFMAR WC is in the USA for Nitro Buggy.
Yep.
So now we're going into the rules proposals. There's not a huge amount here. A lot of it is just tidying up stuff. And you can see that in, let me see. There's some of these, let's see. If you're looking at the remarks, we're taking the stress out of the organizers. And again, you can read through these yourself. This one was...
So we've seen many time practice systems. So again, this is a situation where there's lots of rules about changes about the same thing, and there could be just incremental differences to each other, and that's what makes it look like loads and loads, but it could be that they're all just talking about a very similar thing.
Yeah, this one is one of the interesting, the first interesting one that I flagged up because at the moment, and we were discussing this in one of the other podcasts, the way they spread out the top racers currently is in the top 24 racers. And so this is suggesting...
spread over 3 heats.
Yeah, so this is suggesting that it is spread over 3 heats, and this comes from the BRCA.
No, but it's already spread over 3 heats, which is... So in Nitro Buggy, is the one class that we tend to have the top 3.
But this is saying expanding. This is a new one.
So the top 24 are spread over the top 3 heats. So
I see.
So as in heat
Right.
14, 15, and 16, they'll go, they're the top heats. And so, because usually in a lot of the other classes, we'll go, okay, the top heat. So heat 16, that's the top heat. That's where all of the pros will be, etc. But now traditionally in 1/8 buggy, they are spread over the top 3. So you'll be watching 3 heats where there'll be the top drivers mixed in with slower drivers. And so that's kind of unique to this class. We don't see that in other classes. And so what they're saying here is to spread the top 36 drivers over.
So the top 3, like the fastest driver will be in the final heat. The second fastest will be in the second to final heat. So it's instead of top 24, it's the top 36. So yeah, the current is the top 24 drivers
will be placed in the last 2 heats.
Yeah. And this is that the top 36 will be put into the last 3 heats.
Right. Okay.
And just details how that would happen. So the top 3 go into the it explains it there.
And so what the benefits are for the drivers, particularly the top performers, by giving the referee more flexibility to monitor the fastest car. Of course, yeah. So there'll be less top drivers in the heat. So they can keep their eye on the top drivers across 3 heats.
Yeah.
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 Allowing media partners to follow a wider range of cars more closely over more heats rather than focusing on just 2. Got you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting that in the remarks that the media coverage is specifically mentioned, and this isn't the only remark that mentions the media coverage as well. So
yeah, okay.
So it's that's a interesting one. I don't know. I mean, do you think this would be hotly debated, or does it just seem to
who's going to have a view on it? I guess top drivers, and do top drivers want to be all together? Do top drivers not like to have more of a chance of being with slower drivers because they might get stuck behind them? I don't know. But yeah, it's one that people are going to take a view on. From a media point of view, yeah, absolutely. It does make sense. I hadn't even thought of that. But yeah, it means that you can put the spotlight across, follow more drivers more closely than when all the drivers are on the track at the same time, but they'll be spread over 3 heats. Makes sense to me. But no one's going to listen to me.
So some of these, like this one, this isn't a boring one. This is just an example of another one that we're not covering in depth or discussing in depth. But this one is saying a minimum 3 meter interval for the starting positions.
Right.
And this is basically saying it's presented by Carlos Gomez because it's not clear the minimum distance on the Le Mans grid at nitro races. Right. So that's just an example.
Yeah.
Whether you think
it's a sort of thing that you would expect.
Yeah.
We'll just sail through, unless there's a certain track who are hoping to host and they go, well, we haven't got that much space.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So this one also comes from an event situation, shall we say. And I think we all remember the number 109 very well.
Yeah, not going to forget that in a hurry.
So this one, and remember, this is for nitro buggies, or 1/8 buggy, I should say.
Yeah.
Wheel overall diameter must be between 109 and 120 millimeters. Wheel overall width 47 millimeter maximum. These sizes must be checked at the end of all the race phases.
And that the key word in that is end, because obviously we were in a position where the worlds could have been decided in the technical inspection hut, and nobody wanted that to happen, where the fastest driver was penalised because of having too much wear on their tyre. So yeah, you have to go out on track with an agreed diameter, but what are they proposing to change to?
Well, it's not just a change. That sentence, there's no sentence here for the minimum diameter of anything.
Oh, okay.
In the tyre rule. That's as far as I know, that's the entirety of the tyre rule.
All tyres must be black. Okay.
Well, because way back in the day there were blue and various colored tires, but so this is basically adding the wheel overall diameter. I mean, maybe that should say tire and wheel overall diameter, because the wheel, but whatever, semantics. But the
it's being added.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. That line that's highlighted in yellow and red, it doesn't exist.
Is there some comments below this?
Well, the rule is from AMSHI, because the wheel, no matter the usage, has to be that exact size. That's the remark. But
this was the story of the Worlds, and they ignored this. Like they didn't check at the end of the race. I mean, they did, but they didn't penalise, or they weren't going to penalise. Again, I am not EFRA. I am just a person who reports on RC, and that was my experience at the event, and my understanding
of the IFMAR event.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that that this was the rule that caused a lot of problems and was ignored. So yeah, that's a really interesting one.
So
they want to add that in. Maybe they want to add it in. Do they want to add it in so that if IFMAR keeps it in, then drivers have had experience of how to work with this rule ahead of the next Worlds. So you know, it's not like, well, no, it's part of it, and you've done it at all of your international races, and now you've gone to the Worlds and you're experienced in this rule, so it's not new. But interesting one. Okay.
So yeah, one of the biggies.
Yeah.
Then there's other things here.
I might sit in on that meeting.
These sections here, or these rules here, are for things like motor can and rotor measurements. There are some interesting ones here for across, I think, all of the electric classes as well. Because that includes GTE, which is not in the electric section, and 1/8 E buggy, which is in this section. So I think the same person and federation have put in the rule proposal here for maximum, basically the voltage and maximum charge amperage and that sort of thing, which I am not au fait with, but basically
just modernizing.
Modernizing things like taking out LIFE mentions because no one uses it, cleaning up that sort of stuff, and also things like cutoff charge for the lipos.
Cool.
So that sort of thing we're going to skip over it, but it is basically modernizing a lot of stuff, and maximum voltage before the run.
Let's be honest, we're kind of skipping over it, but this might be deal or no deal for you watching this at home. This is a big deal, and if it is a big deal, talk to your federation, because you can get this voted for or against. Maximum
voltage for so 80 volts for lipo. I mean, that sounds like a big number to me, but this is, adapting to the actual technical progress and safer battery use.
Cool.
So, it's one of these that, probably makes sense. So, and that is it. So after that is it for, that's an example of what we see. And then we see the election of a section chairman. I think they're all up for re-election.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Is it a yearly thing?
I think it's a yearly thing. I think the president gets 2 years, but the chairman get re-elected every year. Yeah. And usually it's a formality that the sitting section chairman. I think more often they stand down than they are outvoted. We don't often see somebody putting their hat in the ring to take over from a sitting chairman, but anything can happen. Yeah.
Obviously, any other business and items for general discussion. Which would those fill up the last parts of each individual section meeting.
Check out EFRA.ws for more info about RC motorsport in Europe.